So I know for you all that you all do research and understand what a journey research is. And as I think about our research journey, actually pretty much any research journey I've been on, it kind of looks like this. I start knowing out that I know nothing. And I'm okay with that, because that's why we're doing the research in the first place. But then I climb and I climb and I climb, and you can kind of see our journey here. We climbed and we asked people for their perspectives on what we should be doing. We did a survey of vendors, and then we hit a plateau and we said, hey, we know something. And we reported that out at the PAFOW London show. But we knew we didn't actually know that much, so we kept climbing, and we did vendor briefings and demos with the majority of the vendors who participated in our survey, and we interviewed customers, and then we said, okay, we think we really know something, and we reported that out at the PAFOW Philly show. But then came that hidden mountain, you know how when you climb and then you look over and you see there's yet another peak? And that happened for us in the fall, where we said, well, we gotta write this up and tell something interesting, and we learned even more. And so what we're gonna share with you today is really that climbing to the top of that next mountain. And in particular, the new thing that we're excited about is we just launched a tool this morning that is an interactive tool that shares a lot of the insights we have here in a much more digestible way than our 100-page report. But it's an awesome 100-page report. But I think the key in framing it this way is once you get to that point, and you all know this, you've presented your data, and then you find out that maybe you actually don't know anything at all. Because like battle plans, everything is great until it hits the action. And this is the action, where you all tell us, this is where you got it right, this is where it could be more useful, can you give us some more insights here? So we want to be clear that this is our best thinking to date, but we plan to do another version of this study this year. So please help us learn, grow, and make it better, because ultimately we did it to benefit this community. So this study was really a shot in the dark, if you will, or a leap into space to try and define something that nobody else had done before. And while the Starship Enterprise might be where no man has gone before, we had a few additions. So we have gone where no woman has gone before. And why is that? That is because we know that as people analytics practitioners, your all's job is really, really hard. And that success is an ever-moving target. So if I think back to when I first started doing research in this space, probably, I guess, 8 or 9 years ago, what was expected of a people analytics practitioner was at a certain level. So let's say it's something kind of like that. Fast forward to now, you have more stakeholders, you have more people on your people analytics teams, and you're being asked to do a huge amount more. And the challenge is that even though your teams may be growing, they're not necessarily getting that much bigger. Even in, and this is some research from Burson from when Priyanka and I were actually both there, even in high maturity teams, their teams are not substantially better or substantially bigger in many cases. So it becomes, how do we get there? How do we handle all these things that are expected of us and reach that success that we're trying to get to? Technology, where anything is possible. So that is what we know. There is a huge amount of technology that can make things possible, but it is interesting when you first get into the market. The way I like to think about it is kind of like Mario Brothers. So I'm going to date myself and maybe many of you in thinking about when I first got into Mario Brothers, that thing was awesome, right? You have this little guy, you can make him jump up and down, you can win prizes, you can jump on the flag, and it's amazing. There's all these things that you can do. And that's kind of what it's like when you first enter the people analytics tech market. There's all these things you can do. But pretty quickly, it turns into, well, how do I win? How do I figure this out, and how do I win? It's really the question we're trying to understand. Now, in those days, I would have gone to a buddy's house and said, hey, show me how to do this. But today, if you're trying to win a video game, you do this. You guys know what this is? Okay, some people are raising their heads. So you watch other people play video games. This is an incredible phenomenon, right? They filled the SAP Center down in San Jose with people just watching other people play video games to learn how to get better. And that's what I see our role as. We're here to help you get better at winning. So let us tell you how we're going to do that. There are 3 things we think you need to do to win. First, you need to understand the landscape that you're in. And I'm going to spend most of my time talking about that. Then you need to do what's called leveling up, right? You need to get access to some superpowers and use those to do even better. And then finally, you need to avoid some pitfalls. And we're going to talk about one big one in particular. But in the report, and I should say, we are giving you a small slice because we knew that we were going at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We are giving you a very small slice of what's in the report. There's a lot more around these topics. So let's start with talking about your landscape. So when we first started this project, we knew that this space was complex and that a lot of people tried to say, okay, we'll just categorize things by the talent management practice or the data that you're using. That was kind of useful, so that's somewhere that we started. So when we looked at the vendors who were out there, we said, okay, there are a lot of vendors who just focus on talent management practices. And these are the different categories that we came up with. There's 7 of them. So many of them, not very surprising, big employee engagement experience group, HCM, labor market analysis, et cetera. But then there's other types of vendors who cut across, and those are these. And we're calling them talent management agnostic. So it's not tied to a specific type of activity you're doing. So they could be what we're saying multi-source analysis. So you're pulling in data from a whole bunch of different sources. It could be text analysis, where you're just using the technology to get insights from the text. And O&A, which can cut across a lot of different talent management practices, but it's kind of its own thing. So I think I was talking to John Pensum last night about this, and I think that these things over here are kind of like a bunch of different types of fruit, and then maybe these are different types of vehicles. They're kind of we're putting them on the same thing, but we recognize that they're different. So that was where we started. Now here's where it gets a bit harder, and we wanted to really kind of dig in and provide a bit more depth for you all. And this comes to this 2x2 that we built to understand what's happening. And I'm going to go slow and try and explain it because I know it's a little bit different than what you may have seen before. So we looked at the x-axis, and we said here, how often are people accessing and using the tool? We went from frequent analysis, which is something like up to monthly, all the way over to continuous analysis, means that you could be in the tool every single day, multiple hours a day. The folks who are on the left-hand side, those are often being used, that technology is often being used to make strategic decisions, or to be more of a dashboard. So we get a monthly update on this thing, or we're making decisions about where our tech should, or where we should be investing in people. On the right hand, or as we move over, we're starting to get into technology that enables us to talk to managers and senior leaders and give them insights more regularly. But it's not a group of human capital leaders as much who are doing the analysis. It is them plus, I should say. And then on the far right-hand side, it's more of that continuous analysis. So it's going to employees, it is going to also managers, but they're using it in a different way. Now, to be clear, the folks on the continuous analysis side, if you obviously look at the data in a longitudinal fashion, you can get strategic insights and kind of use it in that way. But the point is that the primary use case is more that continuous use. Are you guys with me? All right. So then moving to the y-axis, we looked at where's the data come from. So is the tech a data creator? Are they making the data? Are they collecting it? So think engagement surveys, for instance. Or are they aggregating the data? Are they getting it from a bunch of different sources? Now, I should mention, everyone we talk to integrates with HRIS. So don't think about that as kind of being a factor in here and saying, oh, well, that vendor should be higher because they integrate with HRIS. Yes, we know. Everyone does it. So we're talking about more types of data integration. And the reason we're looking at this is because the data creators tend to be looking at more focused problems. So it might be employee engagement. And then as you move on up, the problems that they're looking at tend to get a bit bigger because they're bringing in data from a variety of sources. So where does this leave us? We then get ourselves in, we created 4 different quadrants, as any good analysts and researchers would. Up here we have what we're calling accumulated analytics. And the types of solutions that are here, workforce planning, text analysis, D&I, learning, labor market analysis, and then O&A. So that's the types of solutions that tend to be up there. But when we're going to go counterclockwise. We come down over here to what we're calling snapshot analytics. These are data creators, and they have that frequent analysis. We've got O&A again, and you might say, hey, is that a typo? No. We have O&A vendors who kind of go in multiple places. You'll actually see one more instance. So the point, and this is why I said that we needed to kind of have this level of depth of understanding, is that O&A, in this example, can be the different vendors kind of operate in different ways. But this can give us a sense of what they do and what the different ones do. If we move over here to targeted analytics, this is almost all employee engagement and experience. And up here on the upper right is what we call guiding analytics. And we have multi-source analysis platforms, learning analysis, HCM, O&A, employee engagement, employee coaching, oops, sorry, go back. Oh, and employee coaching. So these are folks who are really trying to, we called it guiding because you're getting that more continuous feedback and you can make those decisions. Importantly, the up and to the right is not the best. This is really, look at the ecosystem. Where do these different vendors play out? So where do they play out? Here. So I'll move because I know that folks are going to want that picture. So this is where we put, after much, much, much conversation, put everyone. And we can have kind of detailed conversations about why these different folks are here. But you can see that they generally map back to those categories that we talked about. Now, we spent, like I said, a lot of time doing briefings and demos with folks. And today, we launched our own interactive tool version of this. So this is my chance to give you a mini demo of our tool. So here we go. I'm just going to show you what we shared on the site today, because the idea is, our website, redthreadresearch.com, because the idea is we want to make this content more accessible to folks. So if you go into our site, you'll be able to find what we just showed you. And you can, it will automatically show you viewing it by companies. You just click on one of them. We're going to pick Polynode for right now. It'll pull up, remind you of where they are. It'll give you a summary of them, tells you their capabilities, and then our notes on them. So any of those vendors that I showed you, you can click on and find them. You can also select by categories, and it'll show you that same image that we showed you a moment ago. And you click on a category, let's say multi-source analysis platforms, it'll show you who's there, and then you click on the name, and it'll again take you back to the vendor who you are interested in their details. So hopefully this will make this content even more accessible, and for those of you who are looking for a vendor, a way to be able to get there pretty quickly and understand what's out there. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Priyanka, and she's going to tell you about the other 2 areas.
Thank you, Stacia. Wasn't this so cool? We were so excited to launch this in the morning. OK, so I'm going to take you back to our Mario example. So if any of you have played this game, and I'm hoping we are not the only ones here, there were so many things that you needed to do, right? You needed to jump over evil mushrooms, these evil ducks, avoid those Venus flytraps. And that was all good and fun. But there was something else that you needed to do to become that perfect scorer and win the game. That was to level up. You needed to find those magic mushrooms that made you big and stronger. And you needed to find these super-duper magic flower that made you even better. It made you stronger. You could face any challenge that came your way. So looking back at the vendor market, a lot of what vendors are offering, they're claiming those offerings to be these super duper flowers. In reality, we think they are the magic mushrooms. So let's talk about some of those things. We asked the vendors in our survey to identify what they think are the top differentiators that set them apart. And our survey results revealed 4 things that came to the top: ease of use, customizable, scalable and flexible, short time to implement. And you'll notice that we say these are differentiators that are not, because we think that these are definitely necessary. These are the magic mushrooms that you need. But are they really differentiating? Are they really setting you apart? Probably not. So just to give you an example, short time to implement, right? This was one of the things that came up again and again. 94% of vendors claimed that they can implement their solution under 3 months. And now if 94% of the population is saying that they're doing this, that's not really differentiating. It's definitely necessary. So let's talk about some of the things that we think are really going to set you apart. Differentiators that are. We identified 3 of them that we think you should be looking for. Addressing barriers, enabling new insight, making it human. Let's talk about these in a little bit more detail. So first thing, addressing barriers. By addressing barriers, we mean capabilities that will help you face some of your biggest challenges, right? And we think those are 2. First one is integrating different disparate data sources simply. We heard this again and again from our conversations with you practitioners. This is something that you're really seeking. And there's a real opportunity here because a lot of vendors are claiming to be able to do this, and they are able to do it. But the real value is in being able to do it simply, in a pain-free manner, and do it without losing any data and context. So we think this is a real opportunity. The second one is providing leadership on privacy and ethics, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more ahead. There's a real value here to find somebody who's doing this well. And unfortunately, only 6% of vendors reported this as a differentiator. Let's go on to the next one. Enabling new insight. Passive data collection. This is an element that falls under enabling new insight. And a lot of vendors are collecting data either actively and passively through other HR technology software. We think there's a real opportunity to be had over here by collecting data from digital exhaust, by which we mean emails, calendars, communication tools, etc., and connecting that to the active data that has already been collected. So there's a real value to be had and getting deeper insights from this. The second element to this is sophisticated language analysis. There are a lot of upcoming vendors that are starting to do text analysis, but we think there's still an opportunity to do this at a more sophisticated level and on a wider scale. The third is in sharing insights to employees and managers. So a lot of recent research has revealed that the more open and transparent companies are about the data and insights that are shared with employees, the more open employees are on having their data collected on them. So this works both ways, right? And this is going to be a really big differentiator, we think. Let's go on to the third one, making it human. This ties in with the theme of this conference, right? Honoring the human experience. And we think there are 2 elements that are part of this. Community and collective intelligence. Again, we think this is a real opportunity to be leveraged here. Unfortunately, only 3% of vendors in our survey responded that they are able to do this. There are communities, groups, platforms such as this where you can share knowledge, share experiences, and really bring that human element into the entire process. Storytelling. We've heard this again and again. Stories are what makes us human. They turn insights into actions. They make it stick. They resonate. They make it memorable. And sadly, only 1% of vendors reported this as a differentiator. But the vendors who are doing this are doing it really well through their tools. They are able to walk the users through the stories that their data is telling through their great UI and visualization. When we saw amazing ones during our demo. So those were what we think are those super duper magic flowers that you should be looking for. Okay, so going back to our Mario example, avoiding pitfalls. This was another thing that you needed to do to win this game, right? Avoid those gaps so that you don't fall and you have to start all over again. And we think there's this one big pitfall that you need to look out for. That's data ethics and privacy. Let us tell you why. because the risks are so huge. 81% of leaders say that their analytics projects are jeopardized by ethical or privacy concern. That's a huge number, right? According to Edelman's Trust Barometer, employees trust their companies the most compared to any other institution. And ethics are 3 times more likely to drive trust for a company. So that's a huge risk. If you're overlooking these issues and these concerns, then you're going to lose your employee trust. And that's very, very hard to build back. So that's definitely something that we think needs to be kept in mind. Let's see what the vendors stand in this issue. So 55% of vendors in our survey responded by saying that they think their role is limited when it comes to setting standards and norms on ethics and privacy. 50% of fewer allow employees to access insights on themselves. So clearly, vendors are leaving a lot up to you practitioners when it comes to setting up norms and standards. So you need to be able to take the lead. You need to be prepared when it comes to these issues. So what do? Here are some of our recommendations. Build a standard charter of ethics. This came up in the morning as well, and super essential. Build these conversations, make them an integral part of your conversations with the vendors. Create opt-in policies. We know right now opt-out is the norm, but we think opt-in policies provide better safeguards against excessive data monitoring. Educate the community, something that I just talked about a little while ago. Leverage platforms, leverage existing groups and communities to educate the wider community and share your experiences about your people analytics journey. And finally, identify what is acceptable versus what is not. What is the level of analysis that needs to be shared across which group? What are the insights, and how often should they be shared with employees and managers? So think about these recommendations while your buying process is going on with the vendors. All right. So we are sure your minds are pretty blown away at this point, and we're almost at the end. So I'm going to hand it over to Stacia to wrap up.
Thank you. This cat gets me every time. So I just want to share real quickly, looking forward, what do we see coming the next 3 years or so, even sooner than that, based on our conversations. First is the rise of technology for individual employees' development. So if you think back to our 2x2, a lot of the companies on the far right are kind of doing this, delivering insights to employees directly, and this idea that we don't always have to go through a manager for information and feedback to go to employees. Instead, we have an opportunity to use data to help them do their job better and to see how they're progressing. So we've seen a few tools that are doing that. Tribe is a sponsor, Cultivate's a sponsor. Those both fit into that category. So I think that is going to be a big thing that we're going to continue to see. Second, more employee ownership of data. So did any of you all see an announcement about a group called Velocity Networks? Okay, so it is a group of HR industry veterans who have come together with 15 different human capital vendors to create a blockchain-based way of sharing data. And the idea is that the employees themselves will be able to take their data with them from company to company. They are probably the 3rd such organization, at least, that I've seen doing this type of thing. So this idea of employees owning their data, I think, is coming, and it's going to get more and more traction. More passive data, we touched on that. We think that the combination of passive data with other types of data has huge potential. Obviously, we then have to manage the data ethics and privacy of that. But those are things that are going to continue to build in the future. So finally, I said we're on a journey. And this is where I do my best Al impersonation and say, please help us. We are gearing up to do the next version of this, but we want your people analytics practitioners' insights in this next version. I have asked for this, I think, at every PAFOW, and we are slowly creeping. I think we've got 52 respondents. So you can make a difference in this survey. We want to put it in, and then at the next PAFOW, probably PAFOW Philly, I'm not going to promise London, to be able to share what we're hearing from practitioners and then pair that with updated data from the vendors. So please help us with our next phase in this mountain. But in the meantime, you've got all this content. It's available for free on our site. Al's going to be making it available for free. If you go on our site, we just ask you to sign up for a free membership, which will, again, give you access to everything else that we're doing. And you can use the QR codes. We've got the links there. And then please get in touch with Priyanka and me. We'd love to talk to you and learn more and help you as best we can. So with that, thank you. And we are, let's see here, RedThread Research. Appreciate the time.